So, CS2 was recently released, and it's, well... Oh, but come on, they will fix it and it'll be great, eventually, right?
Nope.
Surely it will improve over time. It would be crazy if it didn't. That right there is a sentiment echoed by many people when it comes to CS2, which got me thinking, I have seen this before, but where? Oh wait, it's in every single CS ever. Yeah, I'm serious. Think about it. Every major CS game has had a bad start. I am not kidding. So let's go through all the major CS releases and check out their first public release versions. Counter-Strike 1.0. I can already smell the boomers yelling how their precious nostalgic game was always good. Yeah, I beg to differ, and don't wave the review scores in my face. People didn't have standards for PC games back then. GameSpy gave Freedom First Resistance 73%. This game sucks! Anyway, first impressions are that, well, it looks and plays just like CS. It doesn't feel like a half-baked mod. It's quite the stable game. Half-baked. So if it's an upgrade from the beta, what is exactly wrong with it? Main menu UIs are about the same as Half-Life, training mode is present, all it is are a bunch of levels teaching you how to play the game. I really wanted to stress this since some people love to tell you how old games were raw and didn't have built-in tutorials. Well, there you have it. Only reason you didn't know this was a thing is because it existed only in the retail versions of the game and then was removed for 1.6. You can create a server, which technically does start a LAN server, always has. Maps are the classic ones, with some being earlier versions like Aztec or Inferno. In-game, you can see the old-ass UI, which compared to 1.6 looks a bit unfinished, but it's functional and usable. Only problem is when there are too many players for the scoreboard to display properly. Gameplay-wise, shooting feels almost the exact same. Crisp and punchy. Movement, though, is still the same as in Half-Life, slippery, and B-Hop is the most efficient means of transportation. Player models also look almost the same, some color differences here and there, plus SEAL Team 6 looks so different without the face mask. Overall, it doesn't seem that bad until you start reading the future patch notes that eventually led to 1.6. There was no spectator option, no first-person spectating, voice chat wasn't a thing, you can't leg shot with the op, bugs of all varieties. Yeah. And decals that don't clean up after every round. Honestly, the list goes on. This doesn't mean CS 1.0 is bad, it merely showed potential. Even without comparing it to its later versions, the competition was fierce, like Quake 3, Unreal Tournament, Daikatana. And I know, CS was a fan-made mod from 2 college students, but considering they received support and development time from both Valve and Barking Dog Studios, maybe this could have been a bit better at release. If you want to experience this CS for yourself, you can safely download it from ModDB. Only requirement is you need to own Half-Life on Steam. It includes bots, so you have something to actually do, and just to note, I don't think CS had bots until maybe 1.5. The year is 2004, and the anticipation for Half-Life 2 is immense. In the midst of it, you learn that CS will also receive an upgrade to the new engine in the form of CS Source, and it even releases earlier. You saw beta gameplay, and imagine the possibilities. November 1st, 2004 arrives, the game is live, and... turns out, it's just a remake. Why? This new engine is more capable, but Valve really didn't do much with it. Almost the same UI, same animations, same map pool but smaller, and these hunchback models aren't helping. Makes Condition Zero look next-gen in comparison. Reviews were also positive, despite what it's supposed to succeed. Come on, think of it from the perspective of its time. I understand that it's just a remake, but not utilizing the potential of a new engine to evolve an established title is a bit disappointing, is it not? Being an HD remake with jiggling keys, physics, only fractured the player base, causing a never-ending debate. So how does it actually play? It's pretty much the same as today. CS Source didn't go through such a transformation as opposed to the previous CS. The player models really stand out, and I don't know if it's because of them, but shooting doesn't feel as punchy. Headshots do not work at all. Now, I also noticed weapon models are missing a bit of detail and have less shine. Radar is more akin to CS 1.6, with other UI elements being also slightly different. The map pool is a lot smaller, missing some iconic maps which were added later along with 2 new ones plus a CZ port. Ammo is still purchasable, though that was later changed in 2006. Oh, and the dreaded riot shield is thankfully not included. As for bugs, there isn't anything noticeable, but once again, if you start reading the patch notes, you will see them. One of my favorites is fixed skywalking exploit on DE Dust. That is not the only one, and it's hilarious. So besides the lack of player models, map pool, and general copy-pasting, it's a stable release. I just think it could have been more than a remake, but even as such, I feel it's a bit lacking, honestly. Now, just to be clear, I am not sure if this is 100% what CS Source was like upon release. Unlike the previous CS, finding old versions of CSS was impossible, and I looked everywhere. Best I could do are repackaged custom modifications, and although they work, missing are the old radar, plus purchasing ammo, which I could only showcase using the beta version. The most infuriating part is I found fairly recent videos of people playing these exact old versions with everything included, and I have no idea where they got them from. Some leave download links, but they don't work. How vexing! A couple of years later now, Hidden Path Entertainment has been hired to port CS Source to consoles, but oh wait, Valve decided to make it a sequel. Okay, now this is the kind of sequel we were waiting for, given it still works on the Source engine, but it actually looks new. After the reveal plus closed beta in 2011, things were looking promising. Come August 21st, 2012, it's finally out, so what am I going to complain about this time? Let's start with the positives. There's tons of new content. Matchmaking, weapons, Molotov, casual game modes, new maps, classic maps are present, but retextured and reworked. You can't choose your player model anymore, but hey, almost every map has its own unique set of them. And here is where things get a bit sour. Personally, I was never really a fan of the visual aesthetic in old CSGO. Looks a lot like all the other military shooters at the time, grainy and monochrome. CS should have always been on the colorful side. Thank God they went back to it later down the line. What I also didn't like are the new CT weapons, P2K and M4A4. I will never understand why this decision was ever made. Yeah, we did get the USP and silenced M4 later on, but the mistake there was instead of replacing the existing ones, it was now a choice between either, which really doesn't work, considering 99% of players use the USP and it took Valve a decade to find a proper balance between the two M4s. We could have just gotten used to the new weapons. Some people might think it doesn't matter, but this conversation is better left for another time. All the other new weapons were fine, some useless. Poor Bison. The new Molotov, on the other hand, was a hot topic for a while, with pros being vehemently against it. I always thought it was cool and adds another dimension to gameplay. Speaking of, how does this old-ass CSGO play anyways? Janky, but shooting is pretty good and satisfying. Movement is weird, because it feels light, but also slippery. Spray patterns also feel a bit inconsistent. I swear, I'm trying my best here to completely disregard how modern CSGO plays, but something ain't right. This just somehow doesn't feel exactly like CS, and I knew that back then. Oh look, wooden doors. In retrospect, thank God these were changed. So, while not terrible, it wasn't exactly esports ready due to the lack of weapon balance, and the graphics were a turnoff for many people, plus CS fans who weren't ready to migrate from their comfort zone. You might have noticed I haven't said much about bugs. Well, there weren't that many, which is good, but that doesn't entirely compensate for the lack of polish, and that is yet again the main problem. Fans felt the same, judging by the player count being in the low 5 digits compared to the thousands more on the other CS games. Thankfully, Valve continued updating it, becoming the CSGO we know and love today. And it's dead now. And yet again, I am not using exactly the release version. Supposedly on SteamDB there are depots which you can download and play any version, but I couldn't get that to work, so I opted to use the early 2013 demo viewer thingy, which is close enough. As for CS2, we all know how it's going. Basically, it looks great and feels great, new engine is very promising, map remakes look amazing, but it released too early. Tons of content is missing, many maps aren't present, and various features are yet to be implemented. My biggest gripe is that it replaced CSGO instead of being its own separate entity on Steam. Other than that, certain bugs and exploits do occur, some are less severe than people are making them out to be, but yeah, CS2 was taken out the oven a bit too early. Valve really should have postponed the release, or at least left it as an optional open beta until it's ready to replace CSGO. Nonetheless, the future is bright, so let's hope they don't screw it up. So you might be thinking, well, these releases weren't so bad. Maybe to an extent I am a bit overdramatic, but helps me get my point across. Keep in mind that CS is a multiplayer title that is being always updated ever since its first one. Each of its major releases may not have been 100% polished at release, but without feedback from the player base, this franchise wouldn't be where it is today. Wait a minute, today is also the expiration day of my milk. Maybe if I freeze it, it'll be edible tomorrow, and I could eat my cereal.